edition of The Handle here on DraftKings Network with VSiN, Matt Brown and Mike Somich. This is going to be a fun show today. We are going to run through, of course, not only all of the playoff action that's going on. Mike's going to take us to the track somewhere across this great country of ours and let us know which horse is going to run the fastest. We have that on tap. We're also going to talk some of these NFL markets that are out there. Comeback Player of the Year just got added. Mike, we have all kinds of things to talk about, but first and foremost, Pacers go in, take advantage of a shorthanded Knicks team, get it done. It was 111-106, brings this series to 2-1. Is there anything that you took from this game other than the fact that at least for 2 games in a row, we have seen Tyrese Halliburton kind of make a resurgence, look a little bit more like the Tyrese Halliburton we had at the beginning of the season, not the guy that we saw post-injury?
Yeah, he does look like he's getting healthier as the series progresses along. Shot the 3-ball very well, was hunting his shot, which is important. We only saw him take 6 shots in game 1, so to see him hunt his shot in game 3, I thought was a big plus for this Pacers team. What I take away from this, look, the Pacers could lose to anybody at any given time. Like, this was a really depleted Knicks team that's not going very deep on their bench. Alec Burks came in. He played well for the Knicks here. But the way that the Pacers defend, it's hard to lay 7. I'm interested to see what we're going to see from a line perspective here in Game 4. And obviously, if we see OG Anunoby back, that's going to be a big part of it as well. I think the Knicks are awfully live in Game 4. This was the game for the Pacers. Down 0-2. They got short turnaround for the Knicks, a team that was beat up. This was their opportunity to really try and take one in this series. They were able to do it, but it wasn't pretty, Matt. I mean, the Knicks had multiple opportunities to win this game. It was 111 late in, or 106 late in the game. We saw Indiana hit a big 3 to separate themselves a little bit. I just don't think there's just much separation between these two teams, even when the Knicks are banged up.
Yeah, you look and listen, Tibbs does what Tibbs does. Despite the fact that he was down another couple starts, he only went 7 deep. I mean, there were technically 8 players that played, but Sims played 4 minutes in the game. I mean, he only went 7 deep, and it's just kind of what he's going to do. You see Brunson 10 of 26, only 2 of 6 from downtown, 4 of 7 from the line. He goes for 26 points. It wasn't a bad performance from Brunson, but I think whenever you kind of take it as a whole here, Mike, I do wonder if we're starting to see there's so much burden put on Brunson in this. He's playing apparently at least somewhat banged up. They play heavy minutes. I just wonder as this series continues to progress if we see more performances like this as opposed to the Herculean efforts we saw early on.
Yeah, the quick turnaround, too. We're going to have Game 4 tomorrow, 12:30. So it's going to be a fast turnaround here for the Knicks. And Brunson starting to look a little tired. You mentioned Tibbs not going deep with the bench. Pretty much just plays his starters, and then a couple guys get some extra minutes here or there. At some point, you got to think that is going to hurt this Knicks team, especially if this series goes long. This is the time where the Knicks really need the 3 days between games, or 2 full days between games, so you're able to get a little bit of extra rest and to be able to come back with a better effort. Look, I'm still liking the Knicks in the series. I still like the Knicks in Game 4, especially if I'm catching 7 again. But the fatigue factor is definitely becoming a concern.
9 Pacers get significant minutes in this one. Pascal Siakam goes for 26 points. Miles Turner goes for 21 points and 10 boards as well. And then you get 35 from Halliburton. And I think the kind of underrated thing here, Mike, is just the defense that the Pacers have also been able to play on Brunson. I mean, you start to look, and there's a little bit of frustration setting in, a little bit of like, hey, man, this isn't coming easy for me, this series, as it was before. And I think that is another thing for us to at least keep an eye on here. I'm not ready to bury the Knicks by any stretch of the imagination, but there is just a lot to overcome here when you're talking now, at this point, 3 starters that were not in the lineup. And then, as you said, just not going very deep onto the bench. So all of these dudes are relied on so incredibly heavily. It's something to monitor here as we move forward. Again, I don't have a dog in the fight here. I do have the Pacers' future, so I guess I kind of am rooting for the Pacers a little bit here. But I am at least intrigued by how this Knicks team is going to look as we get to Game 4, Game 5, with all of these minutes, with how the burden is put on a couple of these players.
Well, you can really key on Brunson too. If you're the Pacers here, you don't have OG Anunoby in the lineup, and you already are missing your other top scorer there for the Knicks. It's just like, who else is going to score? Who's going to beat you? So it's DiVincenzo, who obviously stepping up, playing well. But do you really think he's going to be able to consistently do this night in and night out? I mean, that's the big question for the Knicks here is who's that secondary scorer? Who's the tertiary scorer? Who else is going to be able to step up if Indiana's like, hey, we're just going to take the ball out of Brunson's hands? Someone else, create your own shot, make a play.
Nuggets said we're not dead yet. 117-90 victory there. They entered the fourth quarter up 27 points, Mike. So, I mean, it was over after 3 quarters. They hold on to that 27-point lead and do end up winning by 27 over the Timberwolves. You kind of go in and you start to look and you say, like, well, how did they get this done? What was so different in this one? Well, it certainly helps when you shoot 48% from 3. I can tell you that. And so 48% from 3 for this Nuggets team. And I'm not going to say that that's the end of the story, but I will say that if you look and one team shoots 30% and one team shoots 48%, it's a pretty good indication of how the game went.
It is. I thought the Nuggets played a lot better defense. I thought that was really the difference here. I mean, only gave up 41 points in the first half, 2 quarters of 20 and 21 allowed there. That, to me, was more of the story than even the offensive side. Obviously, they need to figure out how to get it going offensively. Hadn't scored 100 points yet in this series and looked really frustrated in Denver. But at some point, they had to stop this Timberwolves team as well, and allows you to be able to not be as efficient on offense if you're playing solid defense. And to me, that was the biggest difference here. They really shut this Timberwolves team down, made them struggle from the field. You mentioned the percentages. Denver shot the ball exceptionally well. I don't think the Timberwolves shot it poorly. I thought that Denver played very good defense and forced them into some tough shots.
Panthers score 4 power play goals, beat the Bruins 6-2 to take a 2-1 series lead in this one. Mike, we weren't on the air for the first blowout victory for the Panthers in this one, where the Bruins had decided about midway through the third period that it was just fighting time because they knew they weren't going to be able to win the game. Here's yet another blowout loss. Do you think that this is kind of leading us to where this series is going to go?
I do. I love this Panthers team. The more that you watch them, the more impressed you become with them. They've got depth on the defensive side. They can roll 4 lines from a forward's perspective. Bobrovsky's solid in net. But what I love about this Panthers team is they absolutely step on your throat. When they take a lead in a game, they don't stop attacking. They're a team that wants to play in your zone constantly, and it's a heck of a lot easier to defend when you're 80 feet from your own net. It makes it very, very easy when you're just keeping puck possession and forcing teams to try and break out of your zone. You're spending a minute in Boston's zone. It exhausts that forward line. They're just going to dump the puck deep. You can go right back into Boston's zone. It's a lot easier to play defense when you're constantly controlling the puck, and that's what this Florida team can do. I think they are a serious threat to win the Stanley Cup. To me, this is the second best team right now we have in hockey.
The Oilers got an overtime goal as well. They even the series 1-1 with the Canucks. We will talk a ton of hockey over the course of the show as well. But each and every single Saturday and Sunday, we got 5 things we're looking forward to betting.
All right, classic. High five.
It's time for the Handles High Five.
High five. All right.
Number 1.
We got a game 3 here, Mike. Thunder and the Mavs. This is coming to us in about 3.5 hours as we sit right now. Mavs are 2.5-point home favorites. 217.5 is your total. If you think the Thunder win this thing outright, plus 120.
Yeah, we got Luka questionable with a knee and an ankle. The ankle part, a new injury we're hearing about Luka, so that's obviously concern. Right knee, left ankle, so opposite legs. This is going to be a fun game, Matt. I thought Dallas played phenomenal in Game 2. That was the Mavericks team that we all knew is in there. It's the question is, can they replicate that consistently? On the Thunder side, they played very well in Game 1. They played good in Game 2. They looked a little bit, little skirmish there in the fourth quarter. Little not sure what to do when they came down the stretch. You saw a little bit too much hero ball from them. I think the Thunder are able to respond. This is going to be a phenomenal game.
Let's keep it going.
Number 2.
We got another Game 3, Celtics and the Cavs. We'll talk to Justin Finsterman on all things NBA a little bit later in the program with this one. Another Game 2, another no-show for this Celtics team. That was just weird, man. That was just a very, very weird game. And in the back of your mind, you know how good the Celtics are, but you see performances like that, and you just start going, I mean, can they really win it all with that?
I realize that Cleveland shot the ball exceptionally well, Matt. You shouldn't lose by 24 at home.
No.
Like, it just shouldn't happen, even if Cleveland shoots the ball well. And then the post-game presser, you see Tatum. He's not upset. He's not frustrated. He's just like, yeah, it happens. We'll come back. We'll be able to win in Cleveland. It's okay. It's like, where's the energy? You saw Denver literally throwing a heat pack onto the court. Jokic screaming at people, multiple technicals when they're down. Where's that from Boston? Where's the fire? No, they can't win a title. I am out on this Boston team.
Let's keep it going.
Number 3.
Hey, we got hockey and horses, like we said. We're going to talk a ton of hockey over the course of this, and also we will head to the track as well. We'll also have Jeff Ulrich join us a little bit later. He'll talk some hockey. Mike will talk some hockey, and then, of course, we will also – where are we headed today on the track, Mike?
We're headed to Aqueduct, but it's called Belmont at the Big A because they're supposed to be at Belmont, but that's under construction. So it's a little confusing, but it's Belmont at the Big A is where we'll be headed for the races.
Let's keep it going.
Number 4.
Yes, Cubs and Pirates. We will talk about this game mainly because Paul Skeens is making his Major League Baseball debut. Won't get into too much of that now, but if you have not heard of Skeens, if you weren't a college baseball fan, if you weren't a minor league baseball guy, one of the most hyped pitching prospects we've seen in a couple of decades here, Mike.
Yeah, we'll see if he can live you up to the expectations here, Matt. This is going to be an interesting one from a betting perspective as well. You see minus 110 on both sides, the total sitting at 7. How many innings do you think Skeens pitches here?
And that is the big question we're going to have to try and figure it out. Let's close it out.
Number 5.
We're going to talk NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Now, this is a clown award. I think you and I would both say this because there's no rhyme or reason as to why. Sometimes it's coming back from an injury. Sometimes it's coming back from just a poor season. You'll see some of these nominees, and we'll be like, how does this guy even have odds attached to his name? But you know what, Mike? We'll do our best.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Flacco was on the board at this point in time last year. So maybe we'll just take Andrew Luck. Who knows?
I mean, it's like we're sitting here going, why is this guy even on the board? There's a couple of those guys we'll talk about whenever we get to that as well. But let's get into these basketball games. Couple of game threes for you when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You've already done it once today. You might as well do it again. Open up that phone of yours, pop open a browser, and instead of heading to your favorite gossip site, type in VSiN.com, VSIN. You're going to get our best bets, the splits, the articles, all the odds that we have, the tools, the betting guides, every single thing in a shiny new package, and it functions even better on your mobile phone than it did before. Of course, you can do it over on your computer, over on your tablet, and just do it the regular way. But you know what? We're really proud of what happened over there on the mobile site, so be sure and check it out, VSIN.com. It is The Handle here on a Saturday. Matt Brown, Mike Somich coming to you, and the NBA playoffs do roll on here, Mike, and let me tell you, we are going to miss them when they are gone. Whenever we are sitting here and all we have to talk about is baseball, well, I guess you could talk about horse racing, but other than that, when there's nothing to talk about but baseball and horse racing, we are going to miss the NBA playoffs, that is for sure. So we do have a couple of, as we mentioned, game threes that are going to be going down. 2.5 in favor of the Magic at home. Of the Mavericks at home. 217.5 if you think the Thunder win this thing outright. Plus 120. The big question for this Maverick squad, and the reason why I think a lot of people, Mike, and it's fair. This is fair. When we're trying to handicap, sometimes we have to speculate on things, and sometimes we have to wonder what is actually going on behind the scenes. And that was centered around the health of Luka Doncic. And as it should be, considering it's almost a two-man team. I'm not going to say it's a two-man team, but it's kind of a two-man team there for the Mavs, and all the ancillary guys just really fill in along the way. And then you see Luka kind of come back and look more like Luka again after looking absolutely atrocious just the game before. So you start to wonder, right? You look at this and you say, did he just get the good stuff? Was he just feeling it? What's going on there? Was it just actually just an off night, and we were just attributing an off night for a guy that has very few of them to injury? I think there's a lot of question marks here still around this Maverick squad because, listen, if you get that type of performance from Luka, even when Kyrie doesn't have a big game and you're able to still pull it out, then there are reasons to start to like this Mavericks team a little bit more.
Oh, there are. And look, Luka shot the ball well for the first time in a while. He was 5 for 8 from 3 in game 2, 11 for 21 from the floor, 29 points, 10 boards. PJ Washington was phenomenal. He goes 7 for 11 from 3-point range, able to make up for some of that scoring. This Dallas team, yes, it is a two-man team. It's Luka and Kyrie. They are clearly the key cogs in this offense. But you do have guys like PJ Washington, like Jones, that can shoot the 3 ball, like Hardaway, who ended up going 2 for 4 in game 3. So you're able to, or game 2. So you're able to set up the offense with two guys who are great individual players, and you've got these role players that can shoot the three and defend, and that's really what this Mavs team has been built around. We saw the moves at the deadline, adding Washington, adding Gafford, being able to add defense, add size. And now if they're able to contribute offensively, that's really the big difference maker for this Dallas team. Luka's health, obviously the most important thing. Look, if Luka plays like Luka can play, this is a very dangerous Dallas team. They are capable of winning the West. If he's injured, they're in a lot of trouble in this series. But when you look at Oklahoma City, their one weakness, size on the inside. They just don't have it. Chet, really their biggest player. But after that, there's not much depth there. And Chet, well, he is tall. He's not very big. And so the question is, can Gafford, can P.J. Washington out-rebound this team? Are they able to consistently get second-chance opportunities for Luka, for Kyrie, for the shooters on the outside? We saw that in Game 2. We saw a very good overall performance by the Mavs in Game 2, even though Kyrie didn't play up to his best level. It's going to be interesting to see what the adjustments here are in Game 3 for the Thunder, whether or not they want someone like P.J. Washington shooting 11 threes in a game. He made 7 of them last time. Probably not going to do that every single game, but you do have other role players that can step up here for them, Matt.
Our friends over at DK let us know that they think that Luka is probably healthy. Point prop set at 30.5 there, Mike. I mean, even with some of the big efforts we've seen from some of these guys, rarely do we see the 30-point threshold there for a player prop. Right behind him, though, SGA at 29.5. Kyrie is set at 22.5. Jalen Williams at 19.5. Chet Holmgren is sitting there at 15.5 as well. PJ Washington, 13.5. I say this every single time we reach the 30-point threshold there on the player prop thing, Mike. I get it. The opportunity is probably going to be there for Luka. He is probably going to get the volume. It's just when there is a true secondary scorer, it's unlike the Cavs series, right? Where we'll talk about it in a little bit, where it's basically all Donovan Mitchell as far as the score. I mean, we do have Kyrie Irving, who has taken over games before and has been able to get up a ton of shots in games. So I don't know, man. It's just tough for me to get on the overside of the 30.5. And also considering we don't really truly know what the status of Luka's health. So it would only be an under for me, but I'm not willing to put it in the account because Luka is Luka.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that one in the account. If I was looking at any of the player props, I would actually look at Chet Holmgren over there with I believe it was 15.5 that you mentioned. If you look at his shot chart in the first 2 games of the series, he got up 16 shots in the first game. He got up 12 in the second game. If his volume is somewhere between that 12 to 16 mark, the idea of him getting 15, 16 points seemed very, very likely. He was 1 for 6 from 3 in Game 2, or else he would have gone over that total. I expect that Chet going to consistently get opportunities here, especially from 3, considering how the Mavericks are defending him.
So I ended up playing Kyrie Irving over PRA and points, rebounds, and assists. And this is mainly because I didn't want to pull the trigger on just the points, though. My numbers have him at closer to like 25.5 points this game. It's set at 22.5. So, I mean, 3-point edge is pretty good. It's a 10%. You know, we're talking 10% here. I actually have his assist and his rebounds over what the prop numbers are set at right now. I didn't just play one singularly or narrow it down to just points, rebounds, or just points, assists, because we do have the variability there with Kyrie Irving. Sometimes he can have massive rebounding days and it's not really there from other aspects, or vice versa. He can have massive assist days where the rebounds aren't necessarily there. So I think they could balance each other out. But if you just look at season averages, which I know isn't the way we typically do stuff like this, but season averages for Kyrie, just raw numbers here, a little over 25 points, a little over 5 rebounds, a little over 5 assists, which is over, obviously, if you do the tally here, over the 32.5, which is set for his PRA right now. Bad game, last game out, Mike. I think he can rebound here. He is one of the, I think we just forget because he's on the team with Luka. I mean, he is one of the premier scorers in all of the NBA. I think he can get to that mid-20s. I think on a really scorching day, he can get into the high 20s, maybe even low 30s, which really reduces the burden of what he's got to do from a rebounding and assist perspective. And he's a pretty underrated rebounder for a guard.
He is. He's a very underrated rebounder. And if you think this is going to be a close game, I mean, the Mavericks short favorites, -2.5. Free throws come into play as well. Kyrie Irving, very good free-throw shooter, someone that they're going to look to get the ball toward the end of the game. You might be able to snipe a couple extra points there. I like the points over more than I like the PRA, but I understand where you're going with PRA as well.
Second game today, the Celtics and the Cavs. Celtics are 7.5-point road favorites over the Cavs. 211 is your total. If you think the Cavs pull the outright here, plus 250. This is what I'm talking about, a little bit different, right? Where, you look, and Donovan Mitchell has just been everything for this team. And so you go in and you see like his point prop sitting at 29.5. there is not another elite scorer on that team. There are guys that they're just praying get them to double digits, and so that you can get there with what Donovan Mitchell does. So I'm much more okay with going over on a massive prop like that with Donovan Mitchell than I am most people out there. You know the volume's going to be there. He is going to shoot the ball 25 times. Now, if it doesn't go in the hoop, sure, it's going to go under this total, but the dude is going to give you exactly what you need from a volume perspective. You just got to hope that a couple of those threes fall, and he can get to the line a few times as well, Mike. So I'm pretty interested in that, maybe from a same game parlay where you can reduce it down a little bit, like to 27.5 or something, and then add in another type deal. But I do like that with Donovan Mitchell. What do you think about the game overall here?
Look, this is a really interesting spot. We saw the Celtics drop game 2 in round 1 against Miami, come back and absolutely blow Miami out in game 3 and game 4. You got to expect the Celtics are going to show up here, right? Like, you cannot sleepwalk through another game. And like I said, yeah, I get it. Look, the Cavs shot 46% from 3 in game 2. You still shouldn't be losing by 24 at home to that team. I would expect you're going to see a Celtics team come out, play well, specifically in the first half. I laid it in the first half here with the Celtics. You can get -4 out there right now on Celtics first half. That's how I would play this game. I have to expect you're going to get something here from the Celtics in a positive area because they need to play better defense. They need to defend the arc better. And this is one of those spots where if they are that team, they have to come out and take care of business. I'm surprised, Matt, that the number's moving here. We saw Celtics laying 8 when we started this. It got as high as 8.5. Now we're sitting at Celtics -7.5 here. So Cavs money coming in before the game.
Yeah, the other weird part about that box score, and not to just, the game's behind us. I know we're looking forward as opposed to looking back. Not only did they get drummed like that in that game, they only turned it over 7 times. Like, it wasn't even like it was like they were just handing the ball to the Cavs either, right? It was like they only turned it over 7 times. Nobody had like a horrible game from a turnover standpoint. No starter had more than 1 turnover in the game, and yet they still get drummed. It's just a really perplexing game, which leads me to feel very weird about this one.
Yeah, rebounding going to be a key for them. That was the difference. You mentioned not many turnovers. They got out rebounded 44-31 in game 2. They've got to hit the glass better than that. And they have to find ways to just get rebounds, get out in transition, be able to play better defense, protect the 3-point line. Again, this was a bounce back spot for them in round 1. You'd expect this is going to be a bounce back spot for them again in round 2.
Other player props out there, the 29.5 for Donovan Mitchell, as we mentioned, 23.5 for Jaylen Brown, 27.5 for Jason Tatum. So we got some really big point props going in this game. We'll look at the other series prices for the games that aren't happening today, and then we'll get into some hockey here on the other side.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summich on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It is The Handle here on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Hey, Mike, listen, we have done a lot of discounting around here on The Handle over the last several months, but this one really takes the cake because we are giving you free this time. Not only is it discounted, we are adding in free. Yes, VSiN Pro subscription out there, $199. You get 2 months absolutely free. We're not giving you a year. We're giving you 14 months of VSiN Pro for just $199. You go to VSiN.com/subscribe and you use the promo code HANDLE, HANDLE. And Mike, listen, I think you did the math on this. It's less than 50 cents a day. You know, I know, free is good. We're giving you 2 months for free.
Go to your couch, rummage through your cushions, find 2 quarters, push them together, and get a VSiN subscription. 47 cents a day, Matt. Get everything through next July. Promo code HANDLE, HANDLE.
$199, 14 months. So, Mike, we didn't get to the other series prices. Want to go ahead and just at least touch on those real quick before we get into the NHL. Knicks are minus 240 in this series over the Pacers, plus 190. The Timberwolves are minus 205, plus 165 on the Nuggets side of things. Is there a case to be made for either one of the dogs?
Man, I don't know what's going to happen in this Timberwolves-Nuggets series. Like, I like the Nuggets going into it. I didn't bet that. I've been betting game by game, mainly in-game, because it feels like when the Timberwolves were able to really ratchet up the defensive intensity, it's hard for the Nuggets to be able to come back. If I was going to take a shot at the dog, I bet the Knicks before the series laying the 1.5. It would be the Pacers just because of the injury issues that we're seeing from the Knicks. I don't trust this Pacers team at all. I've bet against them every single game so far in this series. But if I was picking one of the two dogs, it would be the Pacers, simply because I don't know what Nick version I'm getting. Like, I'm not sure if you're going to have Jalen Brunson healthy for all 7 of these games. We don't know when we're getting Anunoby back. Randall's obviously out. Do I really trust like DiVincenzo and Alec Burks off the bench to be able to carry this team? No, I don't.
They miss Mitchell Robinson. You know, I mean, there's just a lot that's going on with the Knicks squad. It's same with me. I think if I had to pick a dog out of the two, I'd probably pick the Pacers, because for everything you just mentioned, there has to come a point. I understand these are world-class athletes. Do not get me wrong. I get it. They are much better at everything in this entire world than we are, and they're superhuman. But you are talking about playing super heavy minutes in every one of these games. And, Mike, it's just a deal where you start – and I guess this could be said over on the Nuggets side of things, where it helped them in that blowout win, right? Because you start to look at them, and some of those starters only had to play – basically like regular season minutes, right? They were only playing 36, 37, 38 instead of getting into those 40-minute, and listen, 4 or 5 minutes not playing in games is big, right? You are not taxing your body for those extra 5-6 minutes out there. And so I think that could help the Nuggets somewhere along the way. But I think from a Knicks standpoint, you're so shallow, so shallow on that bench, and the way Tibbs runs the offense, and it's worked for him, it's worked for this Knicks team, obviously. But I think this Pacers team could benefit from the way that Tibbs coaches in the injury situation for the Knicks. So, I mean, I'm not running to put the 190 in there, but if someone said, hey, man, you've got to pull the trigger on the Pacers or the Nuggets, it'd be Pacers for me.
Yeah, you also have the Pacers playing game 4 at home, so much more likely to go back 2-2. You've got the Nuggets, who have to win in Minnesota if they're going to even up the series at 2-2. The problem with the Pacers for me, though, Matt, no Lillard, no Giannis. Portis plays 8 minutes and they lose to the Bucks. Like, it's still possible that they just play absolutely no defense in one of these games. The Knicks can win with their backups.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I totally get it. All right, let's head over to the ice. And again, two more playoff games here. In this one, the Rangers and the Hurricanes going to be the first puck drop. This is minus 148 in favor of Carolina at home, plus 124. Rangers on the road. 5.5 is our total. So, You look at this, Mike, and I think a lot of people would take a look at this and they would say, wait a minute. The Hurricanes, who are down 0-3, are nearly $1.50 favorites here over the Rangers. This just, I think, not only for the fact that the Hurricanes are at home, but I think also a little bit of playoff psyche comes into some of these lines as well, right? Where you get up 3-0 in a series, and sometimes we are human. We can't help it. Our brains don't keep the same intensity that they did in the first few games of the series. We don't see a ton of sweeps when we get to the playoffs, not only because the talent level is a little bit closer, but also, like I say, we're human. Sometimes we let our foot off the gas and we're not trying to. And I think that's built into this a little bit too.
Well, let's not forget either. This was a Carolina Hurricanes team that was minus 160 in this series. The Rangers were plus 140. Game 2 was a double overtime game, which was probably the best game we've seen in the playoffs so far, where the Rangers able to win. Game 3 went to overtime after Carolina had an early lead in that spot. This has not been a 3-0 style series. This has been a very close series, and every one of these games has been hotly contested. And you got the Hurricanes, who are very good at home. It makes sense that they're the favorite here, especially considering they were favorite in the series. You're going game by game in this spot. I would expect a very good effort from the Hurricanes, especially early on again. They played phenomenal in the first period last time. They outshot the Rangers 16-6 in that first period. At one point, it was, I believe, 11-2 in shots for Carolina. Shesterkin was the difference in net, though, for the Rangers. Carolina got a 1-goal lead, but they couldn't extend that out to a 2-goal lead, a 3-goal lead. That's what they really needed, so you didn't have that situation where you end up in overtime against this Rangers team, and one player can make a play, as Panarin did, to be able to end the game for them there. I've got a couple bets here, Matt. I'm not going to go to the side. I'm not going to go to Carolina. I do think that they're the most likely winner, but I do think the price is correct here. I thought they should be about minus 150. They're minus 148, so not a ton of value. I'm going to play the first period under. This is, again, a situation where I think Carolina controls the pace of play, and then you've got Shesterkin in net, which should help keep that score down. So we're going to go under a goal and a half first period, minus 120. And then I'm going to go back to the well with a bet I made in Game 3 as well. Give me the Carolina Hurricanes first to 5 shots. Right now sitting at minus 120 at DraftKings. This should be like minus 140, minus 145. You've got a much more motivated Hurricanes team, who is one of the best teams at home. They got a crowd that's going to be behind them here. They absolutely need to have this game. I think you see another push in the first 10 minutes from Carolina, and that means they are much more likely to get to 5 shots before the Rangers are. So I'll take the first period under, but I'm also going to take that Carolina first to 5 shots.
If anybody is wondering, there have been 210 3-0 deficits in the Stanley Cup playoffs era, Mike. 4 times has a team been able to come back from the 3-0 deficit. 1942, 1975, 2010, and last one we saw was 2014, to kind of let you know the spot the Hurricanes are in here.
I'm going to say this, Matt. I wouldn't be shocked if this goes 7. Like, that's how close these first 3 games were. It's not like this was a massive blowout in any of these games by the Rangers. We got 2 overtime goals, 2 bounces that went the Rangers' way. This Hurricanes team is very, very, very good. There's a reason they were favored headed into the series. I'm not sure they can come back and win. It would be tough to win, game 4 and 6. It feels like they can win both those games in Carolina. The question is game 5, can they get it done in New York? It would be tough to win game 7 and game 5 in New York as well. But I wouldn't be shocked if this series still goes long.
Our second puck drop, Stars and Avalanche. This series tied at 1 apiece. As we look right now, lots of time for this line to move. We are doing this early. This game doesn't go until 10 o'clock Eastern. Minus 135 Avalanche at home, plus 114 Stars on the road. This one a full goal higher at 6.5.
It's been a phenomenal series, and we've seen the over hit in both of the first 2 games. And it's really because the Stars were able to jump out to early leads, had 3-goal leads in both of those games. Colorado able to come back, win game 1, lost game 2, 5-3. Colorado, one of the best teams in hockey at home. I think they've got an advantage here coming back on home ice. They're going to be able to set the matchups that they want. The home team gets the last lineup change every time there's a face-off, so they get to pick who they want to match up against the Stars-specific lines. The big question's in net here. We've seen better goaltending from Dallas so far throughout this series. Is Georgiev going to be able to play well for this Avalanche team? I think the Avs get it done today, Matt. I played the Avalanche in regulation, plus 110. Like I said, one of the best home teams in the NHL. They should come out, play very well here. Goaltending should be a little bit better at home. And then that matchup, it does matter in hockey. I don't think it gets talked about enough. The fact that you get to pick your line, pick your style of play. We saw that in the game again with Carolina, where they were able to really slow New York down by picking the lines that they wanted to match up against the Rangers. Well, now Colorado gets that advantage, but they're going to pick offensive lines. They're going to try and separate McKinnon from the top defensive line in Dallas. I would expect they're going to have success with that today. I think Colorado able to get it done.
Series price on that Rangers Hurricanes. You're only getting 8-1 on the Hurricanes, Mike. It's happened 2% of the time of a team coming back from a 3-0 deficit. I don't know if that price is correct there.
Not a big enough price. I mean, to me, it's interesting. Like, you can get ends in 6 at plus 650, ends in 7 plus 450. Those are small numbers for a 3-0 series. I wouldn't bet them, but I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up going deeper.
Yeah, I'm going to go with history, just the fact that it's happened 4 times in 210 and say that it's not going to happen. So I would need a significantly bigger number than 8-1 for a 2% shot.
Yeah, maybe like 45-1 somewhere in there if we're talking about it.
You better give me double digits, man. You be doing this for 8-1? What's going on around here? We can't do any of that. All right, when we come back, the most highly anticipated pitching prospect of a couple of decades is going to take the hill today at 4 o'clock Eastern. We'll break that down. Also, a couple of other bets in Mike's account, one in the early game in mine as well. Major League Baseball when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, if you don't already have a DraftKings Sportsbook account, we got a deal for you. Go in, download that DraftKings Sportsbook app, make your first deposit using the promo code VSiN, VSiN. When you make that first bet of at least $5, we're going to give you $150 instantly paid out in bonus bets. So go in, DraftKings Sportsbook, make that deposit, use promo code VSiN, VSiN, bet at least $5, and we're going to give you $150 instantly. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Matt and Mike here on The Handle, DraftKings Network, VSiN, and Mike, it is here. This is a guy that I know really, really well because I was obviously an LSU fan. So it was a unbelievable, ridiculous season last year for Paul Skeens, which actually catapulted him up where he was always going to be a very high first rounder. What he did on the mound was able to get him the 1-1 and knock Dylan Cruz, who was his teammate at LSU, out of that number one spot where everyone thought he was going to go number one. If you aren't aware, Paul Skeens, 6'6", 235 pounds. He's a flamethrower. He, in the minors so far this season, Mike, he threw twice as many 100-mile-per-hour pitches as the next closest guy in all of the minors, if that tells you how hard the guy throws and how often he hits triple digits as a starter. 19 starts at LSU, 209 strikeouts in 122 and 2/3 innings. He added another 6 and change whenever after he got drafted. So he pitched about 130 innings total last year. And Mike, this isn't hyperbole when we talk about how hyped a guy is within the baseball circles. We are starting to talk about, the same stuff as Mark Pryor and Steven Strasburg and things like that. Like these guys that were super, super, super hyped. Like Skeens is right up there with those dudes as, the guys that can't miss prospects so long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, the key there as long as he stays healthy. But this is a guy who's a little bit older as well than some of the people that were in that draft. He's in his early 20s, so he's MLB ready in a lot of ways. To me, the big question mark here is how much he actually pitches. We're looking at the props right now. Over strikeouts, 109.5 on the season. Got over 5.5 wins, plus 850 to win Rookie of the Year. All of those are going to be dependent on how long does he stay? I mean, he's going to stay up with the Pirates here, but how many starts does he actually get in this season? He's pitched quite a bit in the minors already. You mentioned how hard he throws. He doesn't throw a lot of innings, or he hasn't in the minors. I'd be interested to see if he goes a full 6 or if it's going to be 4 or 5 today. All of those props to me dependent on how much they actually decide to pitch him. And if he throws for the full season here as well. Look, the Pirates started out well. They have not played good baseball recently. Now a couple games under 500. Do you think he actually pitches the full season? Is a big question mark here if you're playing any of these props.
Yeah, so I think the way that they handled him says yes, but we'll have to see. So they held him to 3 innings in his first 4 starts in the minors. Then they ramped him up, let him go 4. He got as high as going a full 6 innings. He got up to 75 pitches as a pitch count. So it seems like they were ramping him up. They were being very, very conservative at the beginning to kind of ramp him up for what looks to be a major league workload. Now, that being said, a major league workload these days, this is not talking about just Paul Skeens. This is starters in general. Mike, a quality start is 6 innings and 3 or fewer earned runs, and quality starts are very hard to come by these days because they just don't let anybody really go deep into games anymore. It just doesn't happen. And so you start to kind of look at this, and it's like, is it necessarily going to be innings for Skeens, or is it going to be pitch count? It's going to be a combination of both. Like if he gets to 6 innings, but he's only at 64 pitches, are they going to let him go out for that 7th inning? Or if he's, gotten to 5 and he's throwing a perfect game, but he's hit that 75 pitch count mark, are they going to pull him? Are they not going to let him go out for the 6th? So these are all the questions that we don't really know. As you mentioned in the minors, 7 starts. He kept up the same deal, ridiculous. 45 Ks and 27 in the 3rd inning. So it's obscene, like what he's doing from a strikeout perspective. But it's one of those deals where it's hard to bet. I kind of lean towards the under of the strikeouts, even though the capability is obviously there. But if he threw 130 innings last year, Mike, if he's already thrown 27 1/3 in the minors this year, what are they going to give him? 100 innings in the majors, 110 innings in the majors? So he's going to have to average a strikeout an inning, which he does, but that's saying that he's getting the high end basically of his workload last year. And so these are all the things that we're kind of just having to speculate on if you're betting these season-long props. And the only problem is we're going to get a pretty good idea of what they're going to do with him after today, and then these numbers are going to get skewed. And so you either have to take a leap of faith right now, or you're just going to have to understand that whatever side you fall on, you're probably going to get a worse number after today.
Well, that's the key. It's like, do you want to speculate? And that if you want to speculate toward the over, you're playing him now, because if he goes out and he strikes out 10 Cubs today, that total is going to go up quite a bit from the 109 number. And it's totally possible he strikes out 10 Cubs. This is a Cubs team that's 11th in the majors in strikeouts, so they are prone to get rung up when you're at the plate. You mentioned Skeens can throw absolute gas. I don't think the jumping up to the major league level is going to be a huge issue for him. But the inning count, that is really going to be the key, especially early on. You mentioned how they worked him in the minors with 3 innings, 4 innings. I don't see a world where he's going 7 in the next 3 or 4 starts, right? It's going to be 5. It's going to be 6 innings. And then do they let him go longer? And do they shut him down in August and September if this team's out of contention? I think all of those play into the handicap here of whether or not you want to play over or under these totals. To me, it's more of a game-by-game basis. I'd much rather play, over 6.5 Ks today than I would over 109.5 Ks for the season, because I have so much more control over these game-by-game bets versus when I'm looking at the full season and not knowing what the Pirates are going to do with them.
Yeah, you start to look, and as Mike mentioned, it is 6.5 set for his strikeout prop today. The under is actually juiced to -140, and that's appropriate. And the over +110 on this. Look, if they give him 80 pitches, if they were ramping him up to be able to ramp up even further in his first start in the majors, they give him 80, 85 pitches, Mike, he could easily strike. He was striking out 14.5 per 9 in the minors. He struck out nearly 16 per 9 in college, right? I mean, so it's going to go down a little bit in the majors, but it's probably not going to be that much lower. He's probably going to strike out 11 per 9, maybe 11.5 per 9. So, like you said, could he rattle off 8, 9, 10 strikeouts today? Absolutely, if they give him 80 pitches, but we don't know if they're going to give him 80 pitches. The other thing to remember, too, is when you're striking out a lot of guys, it's easy to get your pitch count up as well because you're throwing more pitches because guys aren't just swinging at the first pitch and putting it in play and grounding out. If you're striking out guys, your pitch count gets a little higher.
It will. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Cubs try and attack Skeens here. Do you swing at a lot of first pitches? Because you're going to expect fastball from Skeens and a lot of these first pitch counts. It gives you a shot to just take a cut and swing. That could reduce the strikeout number as well. One thing here when we're looking at the game line, so it's -110 each side, total sitting at 7. If you like the Pirates because it's Skeens, if you like the under because it's Skeens, I would be playing first 5 only here. We're not going to get a deep outing from Paul Skeens here. So if your reasoning for betting this game under, if your reasoning for betting this game Pirates is Skeens, you should be playing first 5. You should be playing first 5 under, not the full game totals, because you're not going to get a full game of them.
Hope we don't add to the list here, Mike, but Shohei Ohtani, Spencer Strider, Shane McClanahan, Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez, Garrett Cole, Jesus Luzardo, Grayson Rodriguez, Bobby Miller. All of these guys were all inside the top 11 in average velocity in Major League Baseball starting pitchers. Every single one of them currently out in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully Skeens doesn't add his name to that list as we continue on here with what should be at least an exciting start today. Anyway, Mike, you like the Orioles this morning?
I do. I'm going to lay the half run in the first 5 with the Orioles here. You got J.P. Means on the mound, going to be his second start of the season. He looked very good in his first outing. Taking on the Diamondbacks today, you've got Nelson on the mound for the Diamondbacks. I want to back Means off the injury as early as possible here before I think the number gets out of control on him. Right now, you can get -120 on the Orioles first 5, minus a half run. So going to back Means there in Baltimore. Hopefully they can get it done early. And then I also played the Phillies as well. You've got Walker on the mound. He hasn't been wonderful this year. He's 2-0. But has a 6.39 ERA. We don't have an announced starter for the Marlins yet. Look, this Phillies team has been absolutely streaking. I'm surprised you can get the Phillies -130 right now as well. It looks like it's been bet out, so -142, but it's -130 this morning. I think the Phillies the right side here, even with Walker on the mound. This is a Phillies team that I think is playing very, very good baseball right now, and a Marlins team that is just 5-16 at home, 10-30 overall. So willing to lay the number with the Phillies today as well.
Yeah, I actually took a little piece of the Twins as dogs, short dogs, +130. It's really just a bet against Kevin Gausman and thinking that his numbers are going to regress to where they should be. He's been really, really fortunate so far. And you look at this Twins squad, it's 124. I'd still play it at DraftKings at this point. It's 130 here at Circa. Simeon Woods Richardson's going to be on the hill for the Twins, and while he's actually probably in for a little bit of regression as well to the bad side, he's been really, really good so far. Kind of an underrated dude because the name really isn't there for him, name recognition, but he's been really good. This Jays team has not been hitting at all, and we know Gausman. He can look lights out, look like a Cy Young contender, or go out and he can get rocked early in these games. And so for me, getting that number is just a little bit too off, considering this Jays team has just not been able to hit the ball so far. When we come back, as we do each and every week, we scour the web for all of the news and let you know whether it's good or bad right here on The Handle.